Who my brother was prior to January 6th matters, at least to me and many people in this courtroom. Since you were unable to see Chris or to know Chris prior to this tragedy, I wanted to give you a glimpse of who Hugh Christopher Newsom was. And I would also like Miss Coleman to know that Chris was someone's son, brother, uncle, and friend. Chris was the baby in our family. I was 13 the day my baby brother was born. I remember everything about that day. I remember the day they brought him home, how he cried every night for a solid hour. I'm now haunted by the memory of the last time that I saw my baby brother. No baseball hat turned backwards, no smile, just a metal table with a charred body, mouth stuffed with a gag. Chris was about 6 foot tall with a slender build. I have no memories of Chris not playing baseball. He loved baseball, number 14. My daughter always picks the number 14 for her sports jerseys now because that was her Uncle Chris's number. About a month ago, we went back to that same ballpark to pay honor to my baby brother. As I looked in the faces of those young ball players with their whole lives ahead of them, it was a chilling reminder that Chris would no longer be playing the game that he loved so much. Chris wore a baseball cap from the time he was 5 until the Chipman Street gang removed it. Chris was buried with his baseball caps, and they are the most cherished possessions among his nieces and nephews. The first thing you would notice about Chris was his smile. I never remember him without that smile. Chris loved to golf, snowboard, fish, and just about anything outdoors. Chris beat me for the first time in golf when he was only 5. My last words to Chris on January 6, 2007, were to tell him to have fun golfing, that it sure was a pretty day to golf for January. He was a carpenter by trade. Because he loved working with his hands and staying busy, Chris never slowed down. Chris first became an uncle at the age of 10. His nieces and nephews absolutely adored their Uncle Chris. My daughters were with him the night he picked out Shannon's Christmas present, a bottle of perfume. He loved George Strait, the country music singer, and would often sing George Strait to them. He loved to tell them he sounded just like George Strait. There are days now I wake up and I can't even remember the sound of his voice. And because of Miss Coleman and her friends, I don't get to hear his laugh or to see his smile anymore. I don't get to tell him to have fun golfing. My 2 teenage daughters will never get to go Christmas shopping with their uncle again. And my 2 young sons don't even really remember him. In addition to losing my baby brother that night, I lost both my parents as well. They've never really been the same since Chris was brutally raped, tortured, and murdered. My 4 children tragically lost their uncle and both their grandparents the night of January 6, 2007. I tragically lost my brother and my friend. His precious life can never be returned to our family. His chair will always be empty around our dinner table. As Miss Coleman visits with her parents, sister, and nieces in a waiting room facility, I will have to take my children and my parents to an empty graveyard with only our memories left of the fun-loving, carefree baseball player with the contagious smile.
When Chris was born, we were just delighted, a boy to carry on the family name. That beautiful boy grew into a fine young man. He was handsome, athletic, funny, honest, and truly enjoyed his life. His brothers and sisters adored him. He was the youngest of the family. He had a lot of friends and respected them and were always kind to them. He would do anything to help his friends out if they asked him. Chris started playing t-ball at age 5 and continued to play through high school until his arm gave out from pitching all the time. He also played basketball, football, and golf. He loved to fish, go to the beach, and loved watching NASCAR. He also loved to ski and snowboard or just hang out with his friends. He loved his truck, and he kept it spotless. He had bought it and paid for it by himself. After graduating from high school in 2002, he attended a junior college for a short amount of time, worked at a law firm in Reeder Chevrolet. He then went to AMI, an American Motorcycle Institute in Daytona Beach, for certification in watercraft and motorcycle repair. And when he came home, he got a job at a motorcycle shop in Oak Ridge and worked there for about a year. He realized he really didn't like that type of work, so he then found a job with the B&F Construction Company as a trim carpenter, and he absolutely loved going to work and doing trim work and all kind of different jobs. He planned to marry one day and have children. He loved children, and his 9 nieces and nephews loved him. I know Chris would have been a great father, but I will never see his wedding day or hold his babies. I feel we have all been robbed of a son, brother, uncle, and good friend. I miss his beautiful smile, his laughter, and his sense of humor. He was always wanting to play games or be funny. I can't imagine how scared he must have been, not only for himself, but I know all he thought about was Shannon during this horrifying nightmare. Chris loved his motorcycle, and he called me one day, it was about a month before this happened, and he said, "Mom, I've sold my bike." And he loved his bike, so I asked him, "Chris, why would you do that?" His reply was, he wanted a future. He was afraid that he might get hurt or killed, and he valued his life. The last Christmas before this happened, I asked Chris what he wanted that year. He said, "Mom, I don't need anything. What I'd really like is world peace." That was the kind of person he was, always thinking of others. My life will never, ever be the same anymore. There will always be a piece of me missing and a sadness that can never be fixed. I still have many sleepless nights and will never forget the way an innocent couple was tortured while other people were on an adventure. I will never love my life the way Vanessa loves hers. I am haunted every day by the image of my beautiful son lying naked and charred by the railroad tracks because of a senseless crime that was committed by people who have no regard for life. People like that should not be allowed to be on the streets where they can hurt others and tear families apart. Thank you.